Would Shane Doan have a bonus in his contract if Auston signs with the Leafs again?
I doubt it.
Come on, we're making stuff up here. It's June, Frank.
Listen, the Leafs are out. We're making crap as we go along here. Go with it.
Hey, that's what July and August are for. We still got stuff to talk about in June.
We jumped the gun.
All right, fair enough. Where are we here? Is there a sense of urgency before July 1st and a no trade kicks in for Auston? Are you hearing anything, or is there a sense that doesn't seem to be a huge rush here?
I don't think there's really any rush from the Matthews camp, but I do think there is a sense of urgency from the Leafs, mainly because of the person that's now running the show in Brad Treliving. He mentioned at his opening press conference, and then you also heard Craig Conroy at his opening press conference use the term asset management with regards to allowing a player like Johnny Gaudreau to get into the final year of his deal, push off re-signing, then table talks during the season till the offseason, and then allowing him to essentially slip out of town for nothing. And at varying points, they might have been comfortable thinking that, oh, he's telling us he wants to be here. And I'm not saying that the same is going to happen with Auston Matthews, but I do think that there's two people that are now current NHL general managers that lived that and have a little bit of scar tissue that's there that say, not only do they not want to go through that again, but they also want to make sure that they don't lose any leverage in the process, if any exists, before that no trade clause kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously everyone in Toronto hanging with bated breath, waiting for this thing to unfold. Surely he's been there now and they've had those talks. We're looking forward to getting some news on that. We're looking forward to getting some news on anything. We haven't heard much since Treliving has started his sort of organizational handshakes and assessment and whatnot. Have you heard anything regarding the coaching search or really anything else regarding the Leafs? As I said, it's been very quiet on our end.
It seems like there was so much for Brad Treliving to tackle that maybe the approach since then has been, I don't want to say scattershot, but just you're trying to tick things off your list as you can, meaning you want to get to Auston Matthews and get to Arizona and have that conversation. You want to hire Shane Doan as you did and fill out your staff. You want to figure out what's going on with the coaching search, meaning get to know Sheldon Keefe. Is this the guy you want to have around? And if so, do you really want to go through another lame duck coaching season? We saw going back in Brad Treliving's playbook last year, he extended Daryl Sutter for the year before the season started, and it ended up being a move that the Flames really came to regret. There's a lot of things happening. I'm sure he's doing his due diligence to check some of those boxes and begin to move things off of his plate, but it's an overwhelming avalanche of things on the priority list to tackle.
Do you think, Frank, the longer this goes without any word, that Sheldon would feel better or feel worse?
Well, I was making this joke with someone the other day, Kyper. They're saying, well, when are we going to get word on Sheldon Keefe? And I'm like, what do you mean get word? Are you going to think they're going to send out a press release or hold a press conference to say Sheldon Keefe is remaining as coach? No. It's business as usual. You just keep moving right along, and you keep, if you're Sheldon Keefe, keep cashing those paychecks every 15th and 30th. That's just how it works. You know, talk to some of the other coaches that have been dangled out there, even just this offseason, whether it's John Hines or DJ Smith that's been twisting in the wind with regards to this Ottawa sale. It's an uncomfortable place to be, but it's also the nature of the beast. And my guess is probably the biggest hurdle that the Leafs are going to have to clear when it comes to Sheldon Keefe is, I think that Brad Treliving, this is just my assumption based on the tea leaves that I've been reading, is that he's inclined to keep Sheldon Keefe as coach, doesn't want a lame duck scenario. But then if you're sitting there and you're Sheldon Keefe, you're going, well, hold on a second. I've got a sterling record here as head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs in the regular season. I know we haven't had the playoff success, but hey, I don't play the games. I just try and prepare the players as best I can. Maybe he wants to be paid as one of the top coaches in the league based on his job assignment. I don't know. Maybe that's a sticking point. There's a lot of factors in play, but I think part of the way the Leafs approached this was, how do we know that we don't already have the best of who is available with Sheldon Keefe on our bench?
And presumably, were they to consider other coaches, they would have to have talks with those guys and figure out what that would look like. It isn't a fascinating wrinkle. Like, Sheldon Keefe doesn't have to sign an extension. They're having long negotiations about severance, maybe, Kyper, both of them knowing it may come at some point.
And by the way, Bourne, the Preds kind of went through this.
Yeah.
They had John Hynes in place, and part of the thought process from Barry Trotz as he entered his first sort of coaching search as GM was, if I end up not making a move, I'm really comfortable with John Hynes still being the guy, but I still want to interview people and still talk to people to get a sense of what this position is like. I don't have any indication that the Leafs have gone down that road and or plan to, but it also, given that one other team's already done it this summer, it wouldn't shock me for that to be the case.
So Hynes had one more year left on his deal like Sheldon?
Correct. Yep.
And are you a believer that that Brad Treliving would look at Sheldon and say, if I'm going to bring him back, okay, you may not hit the home run with your impeccable regular season record, so I'll just give you this 1 year deal? Or do you believe that we're in this new world where you can easily play out your option here and you will wait again like we did on Kyle?
I don't know what anyone's thinking in this situation. I can only tell you what I would be feeling in that situation if I was Sheldon Keefe and they came to me and said, well, we like you, we want to keep you, but we're only going to give you a 1 year extension. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would just say I'm cool coaching into my final year and we'll assess things as they go, or just can me now. It's kind of like the situation that John Hynes was in. The Preds don't feel bad because they knew that they were paying him for one additional season regardless of what happened. But I always think about it like, at varying points during any season, guys, we always hear the rumblings and the rumors of, if this team loses tomorrow, Coach X is getting canned. And you're like, wait a second. We're deciding this based on one game. If you're already having the conversation, you already know. You've got your answer. Just in the same way that I was thinking about with the Preds, if you are interviewing other candidates behind John Hynes' back, which they told him they were evaluating the process, they didn't tell him they were interviewing other candidates, don't you already have your answer?
Yep, that's a Lou Lamoriello staple. That sort of line of thinking is that if you have to ask the question, you already know the answer. And I think that's fair. You know, my big fear here, Frank, as someone who covers the team, and frankly, I'd love to see him do well being here in Toronto, is that it's more of what you're talking about, where they say maybe it's a 1 year deal. We're not really sure. I feel like going into, they have a lot of big decisions, and you can't really half cook these ideas. Like, if you decide to go past July 1st with Marner and with Nylander and nothing happens, do you feel like it's a little insane for this team to run back the exact same team and coach given the past of this team?
I personally do. Just because how many times do you need to see it and see it not work in order for you to get it? And I think that's kind of one of the dangers of watching a team like the Vegas Golden Knights go on a run to win the Stanley Cup, most likely.
Who've done nothing but make major changes.
Well, I would disagree in that if you look at their roster from last year, one that didn't make the playoffs, I know health was an issue, but you brought the entire roster back, except you said goodbye to Max Pacioretty because of a salary cap constraint, and your goaltending was worse off this year, at least on paper, to start the year. And the only thing you really did was make a coaching change. Like, this week last year, Jack Eichel was on a boat in Hawaii on vacation. So I think what happens is when you see a team miss the playoffs and then get to the final this year and could win it, you have the Edmonton Oilers sitting there today saying, man, that could have been us. And you have other teams around the league, probably the Leafs, looking at the Panthers in the final saying, hey, that could have been us. And you lull yourself into a complacency of thinking, maybe we're just that good. Maybe we just needed luck or some things to fall in place for us. And, if, whatever happened, we would have made it. If.
See,
at some point it's lunacy.
Yeah. When I think of Vegas right now, I think of them going into the finals in their first year and not resting on that, right? And look at the ads and the changes and some of the hits and misses, but they weren't scared to take their bat off their shoulder and swing for some big pieces here. Stone,
and they deserve
Pietrangelo,
full marks for that.
The decision to let Marc-Andre Fleury go, which I know I get it that the goaltending's always a crapshoot, but hey, sometimes you got to make some bold, tough decisions that may not look popular, but give them credit. They had the guts to make all these decisions the last 3 years.
But not going to walk in and do that, right?
Well, maybe he should.
I know. That's my point.
Yeah, Frank, maybe he should.
I think at some point you're going to be forced to make these decisions anyways based on the contractual and cyclical nature of this sport and the salary cap.
Yeah.
So why not preempt it and get what you want as opposed to essentially being forced to move a guy or two because you have to?
Speaking of contractual situations, did I see that you said you thought there was a 60% chance that the Winnipeg Jets would move their 4 big names there?
Wow, what a pull that is. I did say that. And that the question was, what percentage chance would you place on all 4 of those guys being gone?
Yeah.
And it's better. I think it's better than 50%.
That being Scheifele, Dubois, Wheeler, and Hellebuck.
Correct.
And so I just look at the history of Cheveldayoff, and to me, he's been a pretty passive GM by and large, is he not?
Has he had 4
Very
career trades?
Stastny one? I'm going racking my brain. I don't know.
I think he has.
Yes.
Yes, Stastny, Kevin Hay. I mean, there's very few big whopper deals. And I think that's actually, if you're a Jets fan, that makes this summer so exciting and intoxicating, is the idea that after 7 or 8 years, you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you get to sit there and play with your Play-Doh this summer and reshape and remold this team into something else.
And what time frame would that be most likely at? Like draft time?
Yeah, in the next 3 weeks.
Where do you see Hellebuck as a landing spot? I'm thinking New Jersey. I'm thinking LA maybe.
LA makes the most sense to me. Like if you were just purely looking at team on the precipice of becoming more, taking advantage of another year of Anze Kopitar before his deal is up. It's a big swing, but I also think that Kings team with all the young pieces they have is really just beginning to have their championship window cracked open. And a lot of people right after the Gavrikov deal, when he re-signed, and the trade of Walker and Peterson, they were saying, well, this has just opened up enough space for them to go after Korpisalo. If they wanted to, they could have already gotten that done. I don't think that's the play. I also just think LA has so many guys in their organization and system that they don't have to, like they're going to have to trade some of these guys in order to make room. Like there's just too many guys. And so of the young players they have, perhaps they could entice some of them with the more NHL ready versions of them into, giving Winnipeg what they need in order to make this happen.
One more for me, Frank, and I want to stay on Hellebuck. Has he got a case to be the third NHL goaltender to make over $10 million? Or
I don't think so. He has a case. I mean, this is just personally how I view the position and the sport, is that I think you should pay a premium. Like first off, let me disclose that sometimes I think hockey should just change the name to goalie, because if you don't have one, you can't win. But that said, I think you should pay a premium for consistent excellence, which Hellebuck has in the most fickle position in pro sports. You don't know what you're getting week to week, let alone year to year. There's maybe 5, 6 guys in the entire league that you can count on in that way, and Hellebuck's one of them. But that said, given that we are potentially entering a 4th straight year of a frozen salary cap, I can't envision paying any goaltender more than 10% of the cap. And that's, $8.3 or $1 million or so in an AAV. That's sort of the world that I'd be targeting Hellebuck in. And the other part of it is go back to the contract that Sergei Bobrovsky signed with the Florida Panthers. There's only, even if you're able to trade for him and acquire his rights, there's only so many teams that can actually afford to pay a goalie that much. And if you're one of them, are you going to bid against yourself? Like, that's still the most shocking part of the Bobrovsky deal, is there was no one else in the picture to sign him.
No kidding. And no state tax.
Oh, he's been living right, pal.
You couldn't shave $1 million off of that, $1.5 million.
Right.
Anyways, hey, Frank.
And it's still the worst contract in the game.
Yeah.
I don't care if you get to the Cup final. I don't even care if you win. I was waiting for someone to say, hey, look how good that looks now that they might win the Cup. I'm sorry.
So you can get angry about it?
Still terrible.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Frank. Really appreciate your time.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Frank.
Frank Seravalli.